Guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to run through one of two parts of this video. Alex will be out soon with another version of this, running through the most unplayable units in the supported factions. All of these we've had experience playing with or playing against, and some of these are the most iconic units in Warhammer, and it's a real shame that these guys are not on the table. And I think most of it comes down to how much they cost, more so than their stat profile. Obviously, we're going to run through a few things that are infantry. You can see 3 of the units that I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to run through 5, and Alex will run through a few more in his video. But let us know what you think of our little list. If you've got other ideas of what you think is most unplayable in the game, please let us know. Leave us a comment. Otherwise, let's get stuck in. So the first one is a unit that's dear to my heart, which is Eternal Guard. I'm a Wood Elf player, and this unit is probably the most overcosted unit in the entire game. Although I think one other unit in this list is going to give it a run for its money. 20 of these guys with shields, which you have to pay for, is 295 points. Without them, without shields, subtract 20 points. They're 275 points. That is absurd for the profile that you get for these guys. They are strength 3 and toughness 3. Sorry for that typo on screen, which is way too big of a hole to come back from for most infantry, especially elite infantry that costs this much. They have weapon skill 5, which is a better defensive piece than it is offensive. But as soon as they get past that defensive piece, they are just ripping through your toughness 3, 5+ save, and these guys evaporate. They don't get parry because they have spears. Well, you can use hand weapons and shields, of course, but then what's the point of bringing this unit at all? So these guys can get a 4+ save with parry, but then you're not getting what you're essentially paying for with this unit. They have Azurai Spears, which is their special thing, which gives their spears AP -1, which is not common across the old world. Spears don't have AP generally. The issue is you're not doing any damage for the AP to matter. Weapon skill 5 means you are hopefully hitting things on 3s, which is great. But strength 3 against any unit is just generally not good. At best, you're wounding on 4s. But the innate problems of infantry, which means they don't get to pick their targets generally, means that your opponent gets to throw things into this unit that are likely going to win. Even at movement 5, and even if you want to pay for the drilled upgrade, which I think is an extra 1 point per model, you're not getting these guys into offensive positions that works in your favor. They are core, which is good. They can capture objectives, but there's cheaper ways to do that in the Wood Elf roster and way more effective ways to do that in the Wood Elf roster. They do have another couple of upgrades, as I mentioned. You can give them drilled for an extra point. You can give them veteran, I think, also for an extra point. But when you add that onto these 20 models, that's going to bring this unit, before buying a magical banner, to 335 points for 20 guys. That is a lot of points to give to your opponent. And most likely, you're going to give them to your opponent. What you're paying for with this unit is initiative. They're initiative 4, which is nothing to sneeze at. It's better than most things in the game. But because they're infantry, they're often not charging, which means they're not getting up to initiative 7. When they are charged, they can max out at initiative 6 because they have elven reflexes, and the spears, when charged, give you +1 to your initiative. So you can be hitting at the same time at charging initiative 3 units, which is okay. It's not a bad thing, really. It's like, that's not bad. But toughness 3, 5+ save just means your guys just die at a higher rate than your opponent does. So Eternal Guard to me are probably number 1 most overcosted infantry in the game. I'll put a stake on that. Someone can prove me wrong, but I can't see a game where these guys win you a game unless you're wiping the board with wiping your opponent's table. It's a shame because the Wood Elf roster is littered with units that are way too expensive, which makes them borderline unplayable. Moving on to one that you may never have seen on a tabletop. This is the Chaos Spawn, not the gigantic Chaos Spawn, which you'll see on every Chaos tabletop. But this one is its little brother that costs 50 points before you select a mark. It's monstrous infantry, and its stat profile is great for fun, and it kind of fits the narrative of this unit, but it is really unplayable into any sort of efficient list. 2d6 movement means you can roll a 12, which means you're moving faster than most things in the game. You can roll a 2, which means you're possibly the slowest thing in the game outside of, oh no, you'd be the same as a gyrocopter marching that's grounded. So the variability there just makes it extremely unreliable. Even if you roll average, say a 7, you're moving 1 inch less than marching men, which we know is a real problem in this game. Movement 4 is extremely slow compared to what's in this game. So that's its first problem, is you can't get it where you need it to be reliably. The other problem is its D6 attacks. D6 attacks is really fun. You can spike a 6, and that's great. It's a lot of fun. You can also roll a 1, and it makes this unit do nothing. The reason it's even worse is because behind that D6 attack is the profile of weapon skill 3, which means at best you are hitting things on 4s most of the time, 90% of the time probably. At most, but that is the chance that a lot of things are hitting you on 3s, and Lord level characters, for example, are hitting you on 2s. So monstrous infantry generally wants to have big offensive output or big defensive output. This one kind of does neither. It is toughness 5, but the weapon skill 3 is just terrible because you get hit so easily. On top of that, the attacks are strength 4 with no AP. They do have armor bane 2, but I'd hazard a guess that one of the marks you're likely going to take is Mark of Khorne, which gives you killing blow, where kind of negates armor bane 2. So when you are getting your weapon skill 3 attacks that are either 1 to 6 of them per model, that likely hit on 4s, strength 4 means you're hopefully wounding on 3s, but possibly 4s at best. Then once they are through, they have no AP unless you roll a 6, which means you're likely to do no damage to units, especially because movement is letting this unit down. Innately, it has heavy armor, which gives it a 5+ save. Again, because it can't pick its combats, your opponent will likely pick combats against you, which means if they have AP2, that's just going to cleave through this unit. It does have Unbreakable, which is a nice little touch, but it's about having them survive, which is the biggest problem. They can kind of be compared to Treekin, not to hark back to Wood Elves again, which do have a place in this game, but only just. These guys are worse and more expensive. So that's where the Chaos Spawn lies. Another one, number 3 on this list for the dwarves, is the Flame Cannon. I think this is a pretty well-known, useless unit in the game. It costs 125 points, which is the same as an Empire Great Cannon, which is one of the best artillery in the game. The difference with this unit is the variability, which is, as I mentioned with the Chaos Spawn, the best units in the game are reliable and are accurate, essentially. Give you flexibility and give you reliable damage output. 125 points for a Great Cannon is good. You get to laser point it at whatever unit you want. It's pretty easy to hit with an engineer nearby. And it wounds everything in the game on a 2, and it has AP3, D3 +1 wounds. That gives you a clear role for that unit, which can one-shot chariots, one-shot monsters, that sort of thing. Threaten dragons. This thing, at the same cost value, uses a flame template, which is its first hurdle. It means you're getting way less hits on a unit that's targeting, say, a block of infantry or a unit of things, which it's the role of this unit is to kill infantry and, say, cavalry and the like. You can't get a direct hit on a dragon or a monster because the base is too big that the flame template doesn't fully cover it, so it will always be a partial hit. And the partial hit is where it all falls apart, because even when you're firing this into a unit of infantry, it's getting less direct hits than a 3-inch template. It's getting less partial hits than a 3-inch template. You get 1 to, say, all this relies as well on the column of fire, which means you have a 12-inch range, so you move the flame template out 12 inches from your flame cannon, then you roll an artillery dice, and it goes that much further away from the cannon. So you can't just target the center of a unit as, say, a grudge thrower can. That still scatters, but this one relies on the numbers on the artillery dice to show its range. So this thing might just fire 14 inches, which is not going to hit anything. And when it gets there, you're all partial hits. And when that's all resolved with your couple of dice left, strength 5, AP 1. That's not terrible, but compare it to a Hellblaster volley gun, for example, which just gets to roll a bucket load of dice using the ballistic skill method, of course, but that's not guaranteed wounds. Strength 5 will wound crap infantry on 2s. You still roll 1s, and it's still only AP 1. So this thing needs a big glow up. You're rolling an artillery dice as well, which means you can misfire. If you're wasting an engineer's reroll on that, then it's hampering your entire artillery output. The flame cannon has to be the worst unit in the dwarf roster. I know there's a lot of dwarf players out there, so if you disagree, let me know. And if you're fielding this and having success, also let me know. Great swords for Empire, an iconic unit in Warhammer history. They look cool. They're kind of the quintessential Empire, like elite, with inverted commas, unit, at least on foot. 20 of these guys cost 240 points with full command, so it rounds out at about 12 points a model after the full command. They cannot carry shields, so they have full plate, which gives them a 4+ save, which is not bad, but against shooting, a shield would be handy to give them that 3+ save. Say, for example, Black Orcs, which are a comparable unit, and do see play in Warhammer. To back up that 4+ save, they have Toughness 3, as all men do. Toughness 3, as I mentioned, with Eternal Guard, is almost too big of a hole to come back up from, especially when each one of those Toughness 3 models costs 12 points. They just die in droves. They have no defensive capability. Shooting wrecks these guys, and when they get into combat, they're not much better. They have great weapons. That's their little thing. That's their spice, which gives them +2 strength, AP 2, armor bane 1. Not bad at all. But strikes last, when this unit is unlikely to charge anything, means they're not doing squat. I had big hope for these guys because in 1.5, they got a free +1 strength, making them strength 6 with their great weapons. Strength 6 is a key marker in the game, which means you wound most things on 2s and the big stuff easier. It didn't matter. No one takes them still. They got a free +1 strength. Give that to elves, and you'd see a whole lot of variability in army list. But these guys didn't get the glow up that they needed to get on the board still at 12 points a model. Movement 4 is too hard to be offensive with, so you're not charging much. When you get into combat, you're still striking last. So these guys just have no reliable output. The other hampering factor with this is they're not core. So these are elite infantry that have no way to be taken in core, which means in the new match play guide setting, they're not scoring objectives either. So their whole point is to kill stuff or not be killed, and they're pretty god-awful at doing that. So I believe great swords are probably the worst thing in the Empire roster, although pistoliers, which don't really exist anymore because they got 2 better versions of that in the last 2 Arcane Journals, might have given them a run for their money. But great swords, I think a lot of people would agree you'd want to see these guys on the table, but there's no chance they're getting there. Finally, the big bad Arachnarok Spider. Probably, in my eyes, one of the best models in the Warhammer range. I have played with this model. I took it to a tournament. I went 2-1 at that tournament, but this guy did nothing, and it soaked up 310 points. The Orcs and Goblins roster is really, really good. I think the book is one of the best books in the game. I'm not talking about high-end, world's competitive kind of efficiency, but the variability and playability of the roster is really, really good. This thing comes in at 310 points. That is more than a Chaos Dragon, which is absurd. The amount you don't get for that 310 points is probably more absurd. Has 6 attacks, no AP on any of them. One of them is strikes first, poison, D6 wounds, which is not bad. That's fun, but no AP means that it's very rarely doing anything. It's also strength 5. Dragons, as we all know, most of them are strength 6. That's what makes them really, really good. They also have higher weapon skill, generally at weapon skill 6. So this thing, the Spider has weapon skill 4, the Goblins on top, the dreaded weapon skill 2, which, if you're not playing the Renegade pack, is a massive deal because everything's hitting you on 2s or 3s. It is toughness 6, which is great, but it only has a 4+ save. So again, if a cannon, for example, can 2-shot this thing, which is you get no armor save. To add salt to the wound, the Spider Silk Lobber, 35 points as an upgrade gives it essentially a catapult on its back. Under the hull, it's a strength 4 AP 1 hit on one model. It is a 5-inch template, which is cool, but all of the other hits are strength 2, no AP. What the hell are you firing this thing at where that's going to do anything? That part always makes me laugh the most. It does have D6 stomps. It's strength 5 though. AP 2 though, because it's a behemoth, which is its saving grace, and it has poison attacks innately, which goes to the guys on top. The Goblins, low-key, are probably the best part about this unit. as they have short bows and cavalry spears. So there's a lot of dice being rolled with this model, but you're probably not killing a lot of things. So for me, this is probably the most overcosted unit in the entire game. I will play it again. I don't expect it to do much, but I think, again, what's the real shame in all of this is a lot of people would love to see an Arachnarok Spider on the table, but its profile backed up by its cost is just way too expensive. So there you have it, guys. That is my list for the most unplayable units in the game. Alex will be out soon with the other half of the supported units. Tell me what you think the most unplayable units are in the game, because there's plenty out there. I could go through, as I said, probably a whole video on the Wood Elf ones. A lot of it comes down to cost. I think if you took cost off these units, then people would take them. Obviously, that sounds really simple, but I think it's true. Anyway, that's it from me. If you like this video, let us know. Leave us a comment. Chuck us a like. Chuck us a subscribe if you haven't. My name's Paddy. I'll be back again with some more 2+ videos later. See you guys.